This movie begins with the handsome and charming Otis waiting in a restaurant for Celine. In a twinkle of an eye, Dee shows up. Their pleasantries are warm. Dee declines a meal offer, as she has something bothering her mind. Otis, who's eating, almost chokes when Dee asks to know their exact relationship status. Otis and Dee have been sex buddies for a while. She wants to change that, preferring something more serious, even though she's the one who championed the idea of being just sex buddies. Otis stops her in her tracks. He reiterates his stance on committing to a relationship. It's not his style. Besides, many ladies are waiting to have a piece of him. What's going to happen to all those women? Dee stands to leave, but Otis begs her to stay. He's paid for a room already, hoping they can have some fun. But Dee is done with Otis's folly. While eyeing some ladies seated adjacent to him, Otis makes a quick call to Patricia. He wants Patricia to come down so they can get naughty. The next day, Otis is on a phone call with Deal. He's having a hard time convincing Deal to partner with him on his business. Meanwhile, Deal's wife Rita can't hide her frustration over planning her wedding. Otis overhears and promises to help. Dale doesn't think it is a sensible thing to do, but Rita has no options. She pushes to rely on Otis. Deal warns that the wedding has to be Yoruba-themed, and Otis pledges to deliver. That evening, Otis and a few friends execute a surprise birthday for Otis's love interest, TK. That same evening, TK walks up to Otis and offers to take him on a dinner date. Before Otis confirms his availability for the proposed date, his many adventures catch up with him. 4 ladies who he's currently in a relationship with show up to say hi to him. He's dumbfounded and has no words to meander his way out of it. Of course, TK is disappointed. The next day, he's at Liz's office to discuss the terms of the wedding. They immediately agree on certain terms. Otis then seductively asks her on a lunch date. He says it will give them time to discuss further. TK, who works with a property development company, is doing well for herself and her company. She's delivering a final pitch to clinch a deal. The deal has already been clinched, so it's just a day of revelation for her. Celine and Richard honor their appointment with a therapist. They haven't had a smooth sailing relationship in recent times. Celine thinks Richard is narrow-minded and doesn't give her space when necessary. On the other hand, Richard has a problem with the therapist not pronouncing their names correctly. The therapist seems to be a very strong-headed individual who goes on mispronouncing their names. She talks harshly when she receives a call, threatening to intentionally make herself a widow while wearing a proud smile. The therapist's annoying ringtone comes on, disrupting Celine and Richard's attempt to reconcile. The therapist threatens her husband one more time. She goes on to mispronounce Richard's name again while giving them an assignment. It's the evening of the same day, and Otis is spending some time with his baby mama. She has regrets though. She's wasting her years, loving a man who will never love her. Otis is sad, but a playboy has to be a playboy. It's the wedding week. The resort owner, Nandi, has complaints pouring in. Sadly, every attempt for Otis to get through to Liz is futile. He quickly senses foul play. His next stop is Liz's office, but it has been deserted. Otis has been swindled. Meanwhile, Judy has been making excuses for her fiancé not availing himself to meet with the pastor. After a brief meeting with the pastor, she catches Erastus, her fiancé, passionately kissing another woman at the office complex. Her heart shatters, but she doesn't confront him. Otis then makes a rather disturbing appearance at the office. Khalid inquires about the matter, and he explains that he has been swindled. TK is having a silent celebration, being promoted at her company. Celine later joins her. Judy then enters the house but doesn't announce her presence. She just drinks herself to sleep while the 2 ladies have fun. Later that evening, Judy wakes up and states her issue. Erastus is sleeping with her dad's secretary. The ladies then comfort her as she cries on Celine's shoulders. By morning, Otis is on a conference call with everyone he considers a friend. He's begging for assistance with Delia and Rita's wedding, seeing that it's just in a week. Otis has to go to the coast himself. His phobia of flying wouldn't even let him get there by air. With Robin and TK opting out of helping him, he begs to use TK's car for the trip. They arrive at the resort and are greeted by Nandi. She is warm to them, but Judy, who arrives earlier later, isn't. It's evening and everyone retires to their room. Judy's Bible reading is disturbed by Erastus's incessant calls that she repeatedly ignores. On the first day at the resort, Otis gathers his allies and gives them a list of what is to be done. He tells them that Delia and Rita are flying in less than a week. He then sneaks out. Richard and Khalid, who are to help out in the kitchen, have a hard time, as the chef lists his rules to his new assistants. Judy and Celine are to set up the venue. They go about that when Nandi walks up to them. In a friendly manner, she inquires about the kind of man Richard is. She's impressed when she hears positive remarks about him. The chef spends time giving his new assistants salient lessons about women. This is in stark contrast to how Richard has acted towards Celine. He calls it a rude awakening. He walks up to Celine, who's having a meditation session, to talk about how he's ready to change. Celine calmly mutters that he waits for a few minutes, but Richard goes on and on. This depletes Celine's patience, who now lashes out at Richard, telling him to shut up or leave. Richard meets Judy having a drink in the outdoor bar and joins her. Judy doesn't take alcohol, but this time, she tries Richard's glass of Moscato. She loves it and ends up taking 4 glasses of it. Richard suggests that they walk by the beachside. It's a good opportunity for her to share her worries about Erastus with someone. Richard, hearing her story, pities her. There's a sudden connection that leads to a kiss. But it doesn't end there. They head up to Judy's room and make love almost all day. That same day, TK arrives at the resort. As she waits to be shown inside, she sees Richard and Judy kissing on a balcony. She has no words for them. In a few minutes, Celine joins Judy in her room. She gives Judy an attitude without stating what she has seen, and this bothers Judy. Judy's stay at the resort has become somewhat filled with guilt. She behaves disturbed anytime she's around Celine. Celine notices but has no idea why. Later that evening, Otis fixes a dinner at the resort to thank everyone for coming through for him. He is making a toast when Celine picks up and makes a toast to friendship and loyalty. Judy reacts to it in a certain way. She keeps her gaze on Richard, who goes about, unperturbed. Richard and Celine settle their differences the minute they're back in their room. It's Celine who takes the lead, promising they can work things out. She also takes the lead, initiating sex. It's the next day. Dale and Rita arrive in Kenya with a few members of their family. Dale and Rita are surprised that Otis hasn't arranged a proper Yoruba wedding setting. This irks them, and Dale kicks the chairs in frustration. On the side, Gabriel, Rita's dad, mentions to Abayo, Dale's dad, how hot-tempered his son is. TK, seeing the frustration pile up on Otis, hugs him, offering him succor with her shoulders. Eni, Rita's mom, and Rita meet TK. They scold her for putting together a stupid plan. It almost turns physical because TK won't back down. Meanwhile, Otis has found a lady, Kate, that he's about to sleep with. In the heat of the moment, he remembers his beloved TK. He quickly stops and asks the lady to leave. Otis then walks back to the garden to vent, saying he doesn't care what happens next. Rita's presence makes him change his stance. That same day, the chaos continues in the kitchen. Eni gets into a heated argument with the chef. Gabriel, knowing his wife, keeps the knives out of her reach. He explains to Abayo that Eni once used a knife to chase his mother from his home in the heat of an argument. Khalid decides to make peace. He preaches to both parties, telling them how they'll need each other. The chef and Eni then simmer down. Eni claims she'll still have her way with her menu. Someone brings in the first thing on her list, snails. Everyone except Eni dislikes the idea. Everyone in the kitchen soon becomes cordial, except the chef. Rita later walks up to TK, questioning the choice of cake. She prefers a certain type, but TK harshly tells her to make do with the available one. By the beachside on that same day, there's a huge altercation between TK and Eni. Gabriel doesn't even flinch. He just continues his conversation with Abayo. Standing beside TK, Otis receives a text and immediately enters a jolly mood. TK, who has a soft spot for Otis, joins him to dance. They laugh till their foreheads are touching. Otis quickly comforts himself, then asks that they leave. TK keeps wondering why Otis always avoids sweet moments with her. As the day goes by, Rita tries to squash her malice with TK. On a certain day, Dale has a zipper malfunction in the men's restroom. He finds it hard to fix it, so Otis offers to help. Khalid then walks in on them in an awkward position that might infer they are gay. Not minding Khalid's perspective, they go as far as to use innuendos that suggest it. This confuses Khalid. Richard has had a long thought about his next line of action. Just by the beachside, he goes on one knee and proposes to Celine. Celine is elated. This step will help her relationship. Dale and Khalid, who have decided to bond, are off to play golf. There, Khalid advises Dale not to invest money into Otis's business, simply because the economy is in shambles. Khalid then goes on to give Dele a juicy proposal that will have Dele investing in him instead. At the resort, Otis walks up to TK to mend broken fences. TK isn't interested. Rita then shows up with her maid of honor to complain about the unavailability of her preferred DJ. Surprisingly, Rita's maid of honor is Kate. The exchange between Kate and Otis tells TK all she needs to know. Something went down between them. The next day, Richard is with Khalid and Otis. He happily announces that he's engaged to Celine. Otis, who uses his head only after talking, spills about how Celine slept with Josh some years back. This infuriates Richard, who storms into the hair salon to confront Celine. Celine explains that it's been many years ago, but her explanation doesn't cut it. Richard uses harsh words on Celine and attempts to walk out when TK stops him. TK calls him and Judy out for sleeping with each other. This breaks Celine. Judy feels ashamed of herself, and Celine didn't see this coming. Everyone is surprised at Judy, considering how well-mannered she has carried herself. The wedding commences. Everyone is having fun except Judy and Richard. Celine won't give Judy a chance to talk to her. Otis is having fun filling in as the DJ. He notices Khalid and Deli's closeness, but Khalid dismisses any thought of a foul play. When Richard steps out for some air, Nandi goes on to express her feelings towards him. Richard can't be caught in another web of infidelity, so he quickly reiterates his love for Celine. Coincidentally, Celine, who's been watching them, hears all that he has to say. Otis isn't comfortable with Deal's moves. He goes on to ask for his balance payment, and Deal picks offense, stating that the wedding isn't even over. Deal reveals that he isn't investing in his company anymore, and Otis is mad. They get into a scuffle. Otis punches Richard, whose only crime is trying to separate the fighters. Otis then takes time off at the beachside. TK goes over to offer succor. They begin talking about matters of the heart. TK wonders why Otis has refused to give himself to love. Otis is scared of being heartbroken. TK expects a change of heart, but Otis seems to be doubling down on his position. It feels like what TK wants will never happen. She takes it in good faith and storms off. The next day, everyone is prepared to head back to their normal lives. Del and Khalid finalize their partnership. Kate meets up with TK and reveals what went down. How Otis couldn't stop calling TK's name when they were supposed to have sex. She hopes Otis and TK work their way to becoming an item. On their way from the resort, Judy and Otis have an in-depth discussion on Otis's and TK's situation. Otis reiterates his stance, but Judy encourages him to give love a try. Away from the drama at the resort, Otis's company fails to see the light of day. On the other hand, Khalid's company flourishes. Otis then decides to visit Khalid. He apologizes for making Khalid go through the stress of trying to keep his company afloat. Despite obvious signs it was bound to fail, Khalid is a good man. He accepts Otis's apology and even offers him a role in the partnership. Otis is ready to give commitment a chance. He goes over to TK and pours out his heart. TK's love for Otis has always been unwavering. In a short while, they're kissing and hugging. Richard and Celine are doing just fine. It's been just a few months and the pair are already expecting a child. Surprisingly, Khalid and Judy are now in a relationship. The pair are also expecting a child. Everyone in this story turned out just fine.